Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be talking all about nursery sports sessions, and I'm going to run you through one of my favourite nursery sessions. I've literally done this session this week and it's a fantastic way to get kids moving, get them active and get them enjoying sport. So for me, it's so important that children start to enjoy sport at this 2 to 4 year old range. They start to build these fundamental movement blocks so that they can develop on these as they get older. They start working on different sports. They've already started to build the fundamental movement skills. So I'm going to run you through one of my favourite sessions, which is very, very simple, very easy to do. You don't need a lot of equipment. And it just works really well. So what you're going to need some bibs or some bits of cloth or whatever you've got, some t-shirts. You're going to need some bean bags or anything that you can just hide underneath a t-shirt, and ideally some balls as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the first start to my game. Now this is just a really friendly warm-up. You're going to get children moving around, and you as a coach just need to throw lots of these, I call them bibs. I think in America they call them pinnies, but wherever you want, just throw them on the floor. And this can just be your t-shirts or whatever you've got. Then you're going to get some little bean bags or just something to hide underneath the t-shirts. And we're going to call this game Find the Chocolate. And what you're going to do is just hide them underneath maybe 2 or 3 of these bibs. Now, the children are all going to be sat down and they're going to be waiting. So let's say we've got them up here and they're all just waiting for you. And as soon as you're ready, 3, 2, 1, go. And they all have to go off, find the bean bags and then give them to you as the coach. Now when they give it to you, you tell them to keep looking for the other ones, but just keep hiding them underneath the bibs that you've got. So it's just a nice little warm up, get some moving around, get some understanding the game. And it's very progressive. This whole session is going to really help you. So although we're not working on our throwing, there's a little bit of coordination in there, but overall it's just to get them to have fun and start getting involved in the session. So once they find a chocolate, they give it to you and then you go and hide it again. So it works really nicely, very simple, but it's all there to help us progress into the next bit, which is where we add in some hoops. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give these guys their own hoops. So now they have to sit in a hoop, and then when I say go, they now run off. They'll find a chocolate. When they find a chocolate, they have to go and put it back in their own hoop. So this works nicely because you're starting to understand the concept of, like, right, this is my space, I need to put my chocolate into my space. And as they go around, they find a bit of chocolate. Say this person runs over here, gets this chocolate, takes it back. I then am just going to have about, I'm going to have about maybe 10, 15 little bits of chocolate that I can, or bean bags, that I can then go and hide. So there's lots of different ways for children to find them. So once that's back, say all the children have gone and found all the different bean bags, and you can count them up and say, right, how many bean bags have you got? 1, 2, oh, you got 2, well done, and you move on. And it gives a bit of ownership, and they start, if you do that again, they start working even harder because they really go look quickly for these chocolates. You as a coach have to be a little bit clever with how you do it, because you might have a bean bag and the kids are watching you and you're going to hide it underneath one of the bibs, and you might just pretend you've put it there and then go and put it under another one, and the kids will all be looking at that other bib trying to work out where it's gone. So just be clever with it, just try and mix it all up. But the main reason we're doing this, again, is to progress us into the next section. And for this next section, all I'm going to do is if I clear this up, is you're now going to put some more hoops and some cones. So you're going to put a line of cones down here, and then you're going to put more hoops. Now ideally, but it's not essential, but ideally these would both be red hoops, these would be yellow, these would be green, and so on. You have different colours so it's easier for them to spot. They're going to start the game in their own hoop up here, but when they find a chocolate, rather than just going to put it down in their own hoop, they now have to run to the line. They're not allowed to go past the line. They're going to run to the line and then try and throw it it into their hoop. They only get one try, and then they have to go and find again. So even if they miss, and the beanbag lands here, we just leave it. They're not allowed to go in and carry on. They have to find a different beanbag. So again, once 15 beanbags have all found their way, some of them might have gone in, some of them might have missed. Okay, but what we're starting to develop now is that throwing skill, and it's a really good way to get them to practice their different techniques. Now, what you'll often find is in like a group of 6 or 8 or 10 children, is one of them naturally has just got that sort of that throwing arm. So what you could do is ask the other children to sit down in their space and ask one of the children to come to the front and actually throw it. Now, it depends on the age. If you've got your 4-year-olds, they'll probably do quite well with that. The 2-year-olds, you're more just trying to get them to practice the skill. Okay, we don't need to go into too much detail, the coaching of how to do a throw. It's more about getting them actually practicing a throw. So, but it makes it really fun because they're collecting their chocolates and they throw them into their little basket. Now, once the game's done, ask all the children to go back to their hoop. You can count them all up, see who's won. They can then turn around. I want everybody to turn around, look at the fence. Maybe your nursery assistant can help you as well, and then just go and pick up all the bean bags and hide them again. So it works quite nicely. You can do that for probably 3 or 4 different times, to be honest. It works quite nicely. But then what you're going to do, or what you could do to make it harder, is then just move these hoops further back. And then they're working on a slightly different throw. It's going to need more power. It might start looking at overarm, might be looking at underarm. But there's lots of things you can do to make it harder or easier. If it's too difficult, it's just bring the hoops forward. Okay, so yeah, it works quite nicely. And again, helps you move into a different type of session. So what we're going to now look at is, we've started developing these throwing skills, but I want to try and mix up the game now. It's going to be a little bit different, but using the same fundamental skills. So I'll just clean up the board, set up the new area, and then we'll carry on from there. So we're now going to carry on this session with the slight progression. Okay, so what I've got now is each child is going to have their own hoop, and they're going to stand in a hoop themselves, okay? And they're going to stand in there, and they're each going to have with them a beanbag or something to throw. So each of them got their own beanbag, and I'll put that in there for them. And I've got my ball, which is resting on top of a cone in the middle of the area. And all they're going to have to try and do is, with their own beanbag, is throw their beanbag at the ball and try and knock the ball off of the cone. And like I said, I did this yesterday, did it with 3 and 4-year-olds, and it works really nicely. They really understood it. I tried it where they were sharing one beanbag between 2, and that didn't work at all because they just didn't understand the concept of waiting for the other person to have a go and stuff like that. So for me, give them a beanbag each, and I could not believe how many throws I saw in one session from 2 to 4-year-olds. It's just incredible, and it's exactly what you want. You want them practicing these throwing skills, not talking too much. You don't want a game which slows it down too much. They are just constantly throwing. So all that's going to happen is, these guys are obviously aiming for this one, these guys are going to aim for this one, and so on. And they're just throwing it, and if they hit it, what I was doing is I'd give them a bib from earlier. I'd say, oh, here you go, have a point, and they could put their little bib, in their hoop. Okay, and then if they do knock it off, they just go and reset it. And the amount of work I saw on this was fantastic, and it's just a really good way of getting them to practice this throwing skill. So yeah, that works really nicely. Hoops are fantastic for making sure they stay in the right area. If you try and put like a circle of cones down or something else, it might not work quite as well. So a hoop is really good for making sure the nursery children know where they're meant to be. So that's great. And finally, you can progress this by moving them back, or you could even move them forwards as well if they're finding it a little bit too difficult. And you could give them a slightly bigger thing to throw, so they're more likely to hit the ball. Lots of different things you can do, but ideally, you're just getting them a lot of time of practicing the throws. Okay, and then what I did just to wrap up my session, and it was a really that was a 30-minute session. Easily you can make that 45 minutes and probably progress it up to an hour if you had to. I think that's a little bit too long for nurseries personally. So then what I did at the end is I just took all of them out, moved everybody back, and I just had one in the middle, and it was a race to see who could knock it down first. And again, they were throwing, they were running, getting their bean back, going back, getting their bean bag, going back to their hoop and practicing again. And there were so many different ways of throwing as well. I saw some of them doing underarm, some of them doing overarm. And with it is I saw the progression. The progression was crazy, and it is at that age group. When you deliver a good session, the progression is fantastic. You get children really active, and they learn from their mistakes very quickly. So yeah, from this one, they're all aiming for the same one. Once you knock it over, they get a little point. You can reset it and carry on from there. But yeah, hopefully it gives you an idea on how you might deliver a nursery session. I'm trying to avoid teams and partners and things like that. It's more about just the repetition. Practice and making mistakes is going to help them to get better. And ultimately, the more competent they are at different fundamental skills like throwing, then the more confident they're likely to be. So if you're good at throwing, you're going to be confident with throwing. You're more likely to enjoy it. You're more likely to go in, have a better experience when you're 5 to 11 years old, practicing different sports, and then again more likely to go on to lead a healthy, active life. So it just goes to show how important it is that we get it right for our 2 to 4 year olds with the sports sessions. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please do like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.